Hi, I'm Dr. Mike, and this is NF Geeks. Well, this is an Ask Dr. Mike video. Every Sunday on the NF Geeks forum, people post questions for me to answer in a video form, and whatever question gets the most likes wins. And this week's winner is Wayne Tsuji, who's been winning things all over the forum this past week or two. He's on a winning streak, so I hope it continues for him. And so here's his question. I'll read his question. His question is, how does one know where to draw the line between using their type as an excuse for bad behavior and being true to who they are despite other types' lack of acceptance? So I actually asked him to clarify this. What exactly was he talking about? And what he was saying, and I guess it's in here, you can interpret it pretty well, but just to sort of explain it further, is that on one side, a person uses their type or can use their type to sort of rationalize why they do whatever it is that they do, usually bad things. So there's that. And then on the other side, there are people who use the way their type is to discriminate against them or hurt them, or to give them crap about being that type. And what he's asking is, how do you navigate between those two things, between the two? And so I thought about this for a while, and what is interesting to me is that even though there's two sort of separate sides here, two sort of separate questions within one question, the answer is for the most part the same for both. So I guess this question really is one question with one answer, because the answer I've been thinking about is really the same for both sides. It doesn't matter which side of that question we're looking at. Using your own type to excuse yourself, or sort of having your own type used against yourself. It's sort of the same answer. So let's get into it then. First of all, so what do you do in that situation? Either way, regarding excusing yourself or being sort of having your type shoved in your face in some way. The very first thing, the very first foundation to all of this is, and a lot of the stuff in this answer is stuff I've said before. The first foundation is to sort of accept your type, to kind of accept what your type is and embrace it and incorporate it into yourself. Okay. So really to say, this is my type, and this is what goes on with me, and here's this sort of general category that I fit in that explains a lot of my world, and I embrace that, whatever that is. Okay. So I think for both things to work out, you have to embrace your type. You can't have it separate from you. You can't have parts of it separate from you. You can't sort of dissociate parts of the type that you don't like outside of you, so that you can sort of say, this isn't me. You have to sort of incorporate the whole thing. Now, taking a step back before I go more into that, is that you have to be typed correctly. Okay? That accepting the type does come from a correctness of being typed. And a lot of bad things that happen regarding type, I find, is because people are not typed correctly. And they're all over the place with their type, and they don't know what they are or what they're doing, and that leads to a lot of problems on both ends of this. Okay, so they're unable to accept their type because they don't even know what their type is. Okay, so now there's two parts of this. One is to find a way of correctly typing, getting typed. Obviously, I'm going to say the MBTI because that's what I think you should go. At least it's it's something that's been established. But whatever, you got to get correctly typed in some way. Okay, that's item one. And item two is that you can't, pick and choose and try to warp it your way, as everybody does. That, you can't just choose your type, just because you like something in a type or you don't like something in another type or whatever. That messes this up. And it doesn't just mess it up, but it causes the problems of this question. So the first thing is, when you are you're not typed correctly, and you're sort of on shaky ground with your type, when people are giving you a hard time about your type and sort of using it against you or not accepting you because of it, that's going to have some trouble. You're going to have some trouble because you're not going to understand why that is, because you're not really that way, and you really thought you could change, and can I change it to something that you'll accept me? It'll be all off and it won't work no matter what. The other side of it is that if you don't know your type, then that is actually going to lead to all sorts of unethical things, I think. If you're not secure in it because you haven't been typed correctly, because you'll have a whole bunch of other behaviors that you'll try to rationalize are part of a certain type and things like that. Or really what happens is that you'll invoke typism. That no, it's not true, I can be this type and act this other way. That becomes sort of a free pass to doing whatever you want to do. So you have to be able to accept your type, and accepting your type requires being typed correctly. Okay, which implies, by the way, don't type yourself. I don't know how many times I have to say that, but for God's sake, stop typing yourself. So, be secure in your type, and secure isn't just being strong about it. I mean, honestly, if you're secure in your type, you don't have to fight it. You know what I mean? You don't have to keep announcing it. You don't have to convince others of it. You just are just secure in it. You know what it is, and you feel good about it, and there it is. You have it. So that's the first thing. Because if you're secure in your type and feel good about your type, and you've incorporated everything, including the weaknesses, you just kind of own it and you take all of it, then the problems on both sides can get avoided, okay, on both sides of that question. So it starts from there. So why do I say that? Well, let's look at the second part of that question about people. So people are going to, you want to be true, they are, but other people are going to, or other types are not going to accept you, for whatever reasons. An SJ may not accept an SP or an NF or whatever. There's going to be some kind of acceptance. If you're true to your own type, and meaning that you understand your type and you accept it, then you're really not going to care. Okay, you're not going to care. If you care about what they think, then that's a problem. Okay, because that means you're not accepting your own type. You're insecure with your own type. You might even have been typed wrong. Okay, and you might not, and that's going to become a problem because you're going to sort of fumble and bumble through type so that you do get accepted. You might have picked that type or tried to pick that type because you wanted to be accepted. That can never lead to anything. That can't lead to anything good ever. So if you're secure in your type, you're not going to care. You know what I mean? You're going to be fine with it, and you're going to be able to repel any kind of people giving you crap about it. For example, when people tell you you're a different type than what you are. Okay, I'll use my own personal example. Again, every now and then somebody wants to let me know I'm an INFJ. Okay, this comes up on the channel comments, to emails. Every now and not often, but every now and then someone says, Mike, you're an INFJ. That I have a one sentence conversation with that, which is yes, I know, I've been told that. No, I'm not. But then that's as far as it goes. I don't need to keep convincing them of it, because I know I'm an ENFP. I'm totally secure in it. I've accepted it. I've incorporated all the good stuff, all the bad stuff of this, and I feel good about my type. And so when people try to give me a hard time and try to put me into this other type, I can just kind of be okay with it and say, okay, you're saying that, but I'm fine, And all of that comes from us being, having a secure type. Okay, and being secure about it and feeling good about it. That's what you want to do. Okay. Now, the other side of this question, I think, is more important, which is how do you, regarding bad behavior. And basically, what that is when you rationalize your unethical side or unethical choices through your type. Well, I can't help it. This is my type is like this, and what can you do? And all the temperaments and types do this in one way or another. NFs rationalize that it's okay to flip out and do these totally impulsive things that are hurtful to others, because, well, I'm emotional and I'm being hurt, and it's okay because I was hurt, to do that. And all the temperaments do this. Okay. Now, here's why that's wrong. There's sort of two things that are interconnected. The first one is, and I've talked about this in another video. I don't remember which one, but your type process is the how, not the why of something. Okay, So what I mean by that is that the way your type is set up in terms of the functions or whatever, is how you do something. It's how information comes in, it's how information comes out, or behavior, but it's not why it comes out. Okay. So what I mean by that is that any kind of choice, any kind of moral choice, okay, any kind of ethical or unethical choice, is going to be decided, by the information that comes in through the type, and is going to manifest through the behavior coming out of the type. But it's not creating that choice. Okay, in other words, if you're going to be an immoral person, okay, you're going to be your type, but it's not being caused by your type. If I do an immoral thing, okay, I'm going to do it as an ENFP, and I'm going to be immoral as an ENFP, and I'm going to make immoral choices the way ENFPs do, or it's going to manifest, okay? But that's the process. The choice of being immoral is my own, okay? So the way it comes out, that's not the source of it, all right? That's the difference. In other words, what's happening is that when we are taking our type and making it as the excuse, the rationalization of immoral behavior, okay, what we're doing is that we're taking the control over our moral choices away from ourselves and putting it on this process, which cannot be judged, cannot be changed. It's sort of it's excused from any kind of justice, any kind of reprimand or anything else, because how do you punish a cognitive function? How do you rebuke introverted feeling? I mean, you can't do anything like that. So that's one of the reasons why we do this. Why do we make type the source of our emotional choices, our moral choices, is because it's immune to any kind of moral criticism. Okay, but that's a defense mechanism thing. That's a rationalization. The truth is, the choice itself, moral or immoral, is on the inside, and then it goes out through the type, through the cognitive functions in whatever way. That's just the catalyst. Okay, it's not causing the choice. It's the mechanism to which the choice is manifesting outside of you. Okay, again, if I commit an immoral act, it's going to, or choose an immoral choice, make it more important, more clear. If I make that choice, it's going to come out through ENFP. But the same thing would be true if I made a moral choice. All my good choices also come out through an ENFP. Okay, they come out in an ENFP way. So the good stuff comes out in an ENFP way, and the bad stuff comes out in an ENFP way. So it doesn't matter. Okay, and that really, and so one thing that this all connects through, both questions, is the concept of moral agency, which is a concept I like a lot, and that is an individual is responsible for their own moral choices, because you're the one actually making the choice, and you're the one actually having the behavior based on your choice, okay, rational or irrational or whatever, okay. Outside forces cannot cause you to make a moral choice. You are making a moral choice, reacting to the environment, okay. You may have limited choices, but you're still making the choice, okay. It's still you doing it, all right. And that, again, what we're doing, or what people are doing to be immoral, to allow for immorality, is putting that moral agency, that control, that moral control, outside of the self, or outside onto something else, so that this other thing, which cannot be changed, which cannot be argued against, which cannot be criticized, is the thing that's making the choice, and therefore that absolves the other person. Okay, the person that's making the choice. Now, in the first part of the question, using your own type to excuse your unethical behavior is doing that. It's taking the moral choice out of you, the moral agency out of you, and putting it on your functions, on your type. Okay, my type is the thing that's making this happen. Okay, and therefore I don't have a choice. It's taking away your choice. Okay, so you're giving the control of choice to this other thing, this abstract thing, which cannot be, criticized, rebuked, anything. Okay, now back to the other side of the question about people not accepting others for their own type. That also is a form of changing moral agency. Okay, and changing control of moral choices. So in other words, the person that's accusing the other, well, you're a jerk because you're an ENFP. Okay, instead of owning that and saying I don't like you. I'm making a choice about you because I don't like you for whatever reason, or I don't like ENFP or whatever. But me, you put it on the type. I don't like this type, and this type is something that's causing me to make this choice about you. Okay, so again, the choice is taken out of the person, all right, and it's put onto this other abstract thing, which again has no actual, it's not making any choices. It doesn't physically exist. It's this sort of, form of process that you can't do anything about. Nobody can criticize it. Nobody can think about it. So it's this process called ENFP, and I'm just reacting to that. It's not me. It's not me making my choices. It's this other thing that's making choices. I want to add to all this something that I like very much, and that is moral development. Okay, and this comes from my love of Lawrence Kohlberg. I always had a big love of him, and also though really when I think about it, it's from my understanding and study of Kierkegaard, my favorite of the philosophers. But what I want to point out is that there's this whole other thing that's involved with moral reasoning, that's developmental, that actually is more of the source of various moral choices within the types, that isn't necessarily coming from the types or as part of the types. Okay, so what I mean by that is that how a type makes a moral reasoning, even if it's a mistake of putting the control onto something else. Okay, it depends on where they are developmentally, and it certainly depends on where they are developmentally in terms of moral thinking. Okay, so Kohlberg gives us three levels, the pre-conventional level, the conventional level, and the post-conventional level. The pre-conventional level is just, straight up egoism, moral outcomes for the self are more important. So there's an egoist type of ENFP, where all of the ENFP choices are simply for the self, nothing but the self, okay? What's good for the ENFP, that kind of thing. Those, I have to say, what would those be like? Certainly the sensual, the sensual decisions that ENFPs make are for the self. The experience of wanting to experience something for the self, very aesthetic. Kierkegaard would call it part of that is the aesthetic stage. I agree for ENFP. That seems right. But that idea that anything I do that's for the self is good. Okay, the self is the moral center. Okay, so an ENFP like that would just care about outcomes for the self, be selfish. The conventional level is basically the group that the person belongs to, whatever the rules are of the group, the norms, whatever that is. That can be society, but it could also be family, peers, co-workers, whatever, And, an ENFP would make choices based, if an ENFP was on that developmental level, they'd make choices based on that, okay, based on, what is the group expecting of me? What are the norms of the group, And then the post-conventional is having principles, okay, having principles beyond the group, beyond the self, and operating like that. An ENFP would be thinking about moral principles of all humanity, okay, beyond whatever the social rules are or what the self needs. That would be, the post-conventional. So those three levels are more involved, I think, in making these decisions in both directions of this question than the type, okay? So what do I mean by that is that a less developed type, who's on a lower level of moral thinking, is more likely to rationalize that it's their type making that choice, okay? That it's not them, it's this thing called type that is actually making this choice, and therefore they get a pass. Also on the other side, if they're accusing of somebody, they don't want to accept somebody, okay, I think this is the more selfish side. I don't want to accept you because it makes me anxious or whatever, I just don't like you. And the idea of taking responsibility of that gives me anxiety, again, it's still back about me. So I'm going to blame this thing called type, except this time it's your type. It's your, so I see that mostly in, if I had to speculate, it would be on that lower level. That pre-conventional level, going on. So there's this other thing going through type that I think affects these things. But if you accept your type, okay, getting back to the beginning of this, if you understand your type and you accept it and you feel comfortable in it and you've incorporated all of it, including the weaknesses, and you own all of it holistically as one thing, I think both sides of this can be avoided. You won't put the moral, because you accept your type, This the funny thing is that the more you accept your type, the less likely you're going to put the moral control on the type, okay, itself, because you've accepted it as part of yourself and it's okay, and so you're going to own it. Same thing the other way. The more accepted you are of the type, you're not going to internalize the other, the people who want to not accept you as putting the moral control on your type. Well, it's your fault because you are this type and that's why you're a jackass. You know what I mean? But if you're, good about your type, you feel good and confident, you're not going to internalize that. You're going to be like, no, it's not true, and I'm fine with it and whatever. You'll be able to move on. So that's my answer for that. I want to talk about one last thing, just to kind of add it all in. I talk about this in my ethics class, and that is that I feel that the nature of evil can be reduced to this, okay, no matter what it is, right, or immoral behavior, is basically someone being wounded by reality, either of society or the universe or whatever, and believing that they're owed, that they've been screwed over, okay, they've been wounded and they've been screwed over by the universe, by reality, by whatever, okay, and because they've been screwed over, they're owed something, and because they're owed something, they get a free pass for behavior. Okay, so they get a get out of jail free card because because something bad happens. So some kind of wounding, some horrible thing happens. They feel that I'm owed something because this horrible thing happened. So I'm not getting my needs met. So therefore I have a free pass to run amok through reality. The rules don't apply to me because I'm owed something because I was wounded in some way. So I think that's the nature of all sort of evil and immorality, and I think that relates to type, because what you think, what the wound is, I think will come through type. You'll interpret it through type, and your free pass will come out through type. So, I wanted to throw that in there. All right, so that's it. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to go join the fun on the Facebook forum for NF Geeks, the NF Geeks discussion group. Follow NF Geeks on Twitter and Tumblr, and it's happening, and it's really happening because it's near Christmas time. So keep watching and keep making it happen.